What if I told you that the man history remembers that the world's worst monster wasn't actually the worst? What if there was someone who killed 7 times more people than Hitler? Someone whose victims numbered not in the millions, but in the tens of millions? Today on Tyrant, we're revealing the shocking truth about Mao Zedong, the Chinese dictator whose death toll makes the Holocaust look small by comparison. We'll show you documented evidence, historical records, and testimonies that prove why this man might be the most brutal leader in human history. By the end of this video, you'll understand why schools don't teach this, why does the media rarely mention it, and why the numbers are so staggering they're almost impossible to believe. Let's dive into the disturbing reality of Mao's China. Section 1. The Numbers Game. When people think of evil dictators, Hitler's name comes up first. The Holocaust killed approximately 6 million Jewish people, and Hitler's total death count reaches around 11 million when including other victims. These numbers are horrific and well documented. But Mao Zedong's death toll tells a different story entirely. Conservative estimates put Mao's victims at 40 million people. Higher estimates reach 65 million. Some historians argue the number could be as high as 80 million deaths directly caused by his policies and actions. To put this in perspective, if Hitler killed 11 million people, Mao killed the equivalent of 7 Holocausts. 7. Let that sink in for a moment. These weren't deaths from traditional warfare. These were civilians, farmers, intellectuals, children, and elderly people who died from forced famines, political purges, labor camps, and systematic persecution. The scale is so massive that it challenges our understanding of human cruelty. The question isn't whether Mao killed more people than Hitler. The documented evidence proves he did. The real question is, why don't more people know about this? Section 2. The Great Leap Forward Disaster. Between 1958 and 1962, Mao launched what he called the Great Leap Forward. The name sounds positive, but it became one of history's deadliest man-made disasters. Mao wanted China to surpass Britain in steel production within 15 years. He forced farmers to abandon their crops and melt down pots, pans, and farming tools in backyard furnaces. The steel they produced was completely useless, but the crops they abandoned rotted in the fields. The result was predictable: massive famine. However, Mao's government continued to demand grain quotas from starving provinces. Local officials, terrified of being labeled traitors, reported fake harvest numbers while people died of hunger around them. During this period, something happened that seems impossible to believe. Cannibalism became widespread. Desperate parents were forced to eat their own children to survive. Villages turned into ghost towns. Some areas lost over half their population. Yung Chang, author of Wild Swans, documented cases where people were so hungry they ate bark, grass, and leather belts. When those ran out, they ate clay and human flesh. Government records, previously hidden for decades, revealed that officials were aware of the famine, but continued to export grain to maintain China's international image. This wasn't accidental. Internal documents revealed that Mao was informed about the starvation, but dismissed reports as peasant laziness. When one official dared to speak up about the crisis, Mao had him imprisoned. The Great Leap Forward alone killed an estimated 15 to 45 million people. More than Hitler's entire death toll in just 4 years. If these historical facts shock you as much as they shocked us when we researched this, make sure to subscribe to Tyrant Tales and hit the bell icon. Your support helps us bring you more eye-opening content like this. Section 3. The Cultural Revolution Horror. Just when you think Mao's story couldn't get worse, we reached the Cultural Revolution of 1966 to 1976. This period shows how systematic persecution can destroy the fabric of society itself. Mao encouraged young people, called the Red Guards, to attack anyone labeled as class enemies. Teachers, doctors, engineers, and anyone with an education became targets. But the horror went deeper than political persecution. Children were encouraged to betray their own parents. Students beat their teachers to death in classrooms. Neighbors reported neighbors for having bourgeois thoughts. Families were torn apart as sons denounced fathers and wives accused husbands. One documented case involves a teacher named Bian Zhongyun. She was beaten to death by her own students with nail-studded clubs. Her crime? Being a school administrator. Her murder was filmed and shown to other schools as an example. During this period, ancient temples were destroyed, books were burned, and traditional Chinese culture was systematically eliminated. People were forced to destroy their own family heirlooms and denounce their ancestors. The psychological torture was as brutal as the physical violence. People lived in constant fear, never knowing when they might be accused of thinking the wrong thoughts or having the wrong background. Estimates suggest that between 500,000 and 2 million people died during the Cultural Revolution, with millions more suffering imprisonment, torture, and psychological trauma that lasted generations. Section 4. The comparison nobody talks about. So why don't we learn about this in school? Why isn't Mao's name mentioned alongside Hitler's when we discuss history's worst dictators? There are several uncomfortable reasons. First, China's current government doesn't encourage discussion of Mao's failures, even though they've moved away from his policies. Second, many Western intellectuals in the 1960s and 70s praised Mao without understanding what was happening in China. Third, the deaths happened over a longer period and were spread across a vast country, making them less visible than the concentrated horror of Nazi death camps. The Holocaust was documented by Nazi record keepers and discovered by Allied forces. Mao's victims died in remote villages with no cameras, no international observers, and no one to tell their stories. But perhaps most importantly, it challenges our understanding of political systems. Hitler's crimes are easier to categorize as the work of a fascist madman. Mao's crimes force us to confront how idealistic political movements can lead to mass murder. The evidence is overwhelming. The Black Book of Communism is scholarly work by Yung Chang and John Halliday, and recently released Chinese government documents all confirm the scale of Mao's brutality. When we compare methods, both leaders used propaganda, persecution, and systematic murder. But Mao's reach was broader, his timeline longer, and his victim count higher. Section 5. The lasting impact. The effects of Mao's rule didn't end with his death in 1976. Entire generations grew up traumatized, families destroyed, and cultural traditions lost forever. Survivors describe a society where trust disappeared. Parents couldn't trust children, and friends couldn't trust friends, and teachers couldn't trust students. This breakdown of social bonds took decades to heal and, in many ways, continues today. The economic impact was equally devastating. China, once one of the world's most advanced civilizations, fell decades behind during Mao's rule. It wasn't until market reforms in the 1980s that China began recovering economically. But the human cost remains the most important factor. Every number represents a person, someone's parent, child, sibling, or friend. Behind the statistics are millions of individual tragedies that shaped modern China. Understanding this history isn't about attacking modern China or dismissing legitimate political movements. It's about recognizing how absolute power, regardless of stated intentions, can lead to absolute horror. The evidence is clear. Mao Zedong's policies directly caused the deaths of 40 to 80 million people, making him responsible for more deaths than Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, or any other leader in human history. This isn't about politics or ideology. It's about historical facts that deserve to be known and remembered. The victims of Mao's China deserve the same recognition as victims of other genocides and mass murders. Why does this matter today? Because understanding how societies can slide into mass violence helps us recognize warning signs and protect human rights. When we ignore history's lessons, we risk repeating its worst mistakes. What shocked you most about this comparison? Did you know about Mao's death toll before watching this video? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. Subscribe to Tyrant Tales for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. Hit that like button to help us reach more people with these important historical facts. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and remember, the truth is always worth knowing.